So Senate Bill 519 will decriminalize the possession of psychedelic drugs, which are showing huge potential in terms of treating mental health and addiction problems. These drugs right now are illegal in California because of the war on drugs. We know the war on drugs has been a complete failure. It does not solve anything to arrest people for having or using drugs and incarcerating them. Drugs are a health problem or a health issue, not a criminal issue. And it's time to take a health-based approach to drugs instead of just mass incarcerating people, which wastes money and does not stop people from using drugs. And so psychedelics in particular have huge promise. And we're working with a big network of veterans and other people suffering from PTSD, depression, addiction, and these substances are helping them turn their lives around. We have a huge problem in California and everywhere with untreated mental health and addiction problems. People who are suffering in so many ways, and we see it most obviously on our streets, but it's everywhere. People who are working, people who have housing, veterans who have fought for our country, young people who have these mental health problems, who might be addicted to drugs, and they're not getting the treatment that they need. And sometimes the treatment they're getting is not working. And there is increasing evidence that psychedelics can be hugely beneficial to people in treating various mental health conditions as well as addiction, particularly when it's combined with traditional talk therapy. And so we want to stop criminalizing people for possessing or using these substances. At the same time, the FDA has been considering the growing evidence that psychedelics work. So hopefully at some point, doctors will even be able to prescribe them. So there are various things happening, but right now, we think California needs to stop arresting and locking people up for possessing psychedelics. Mushrooms are psilocybin, which has shown huge promise, MDMA, mescaline, LSD, ketamine, DMT, ibogaine. Those are the main ones, and they all show varying degrees of promise in terms of treating mental health and addiction diagnoses. The FDA is focused on purely medicinal in terms of obtaining these substances through the healthcare system. What we're doing here is simply saying we're no longer going to arrest people for possessing the drugs. And we're not going to say, oh, you're using it because you're depressed, you're not, so we're going to arrest you, but not you. No, we're saying we're just going to stop arresting people for possessing these drugs. Because let's be clear, this is also about the war on drugs. We've been trying to arrest our way and incarcerate our way out of drug use for more than 50 years. It's been a complete failure. It doesn't work. People are using drugs more and getting addicted more now than they were 50 years ago. But we have spent hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars incarcerating people for drug use. It doesn't work. And so let's stop arresting people because they are possessing or using, in this case, psychedelics, and then we can talk about other drugs. Let's stop that and take a more health-based approach. People will be able to cultivate for personal use. Some of the psychedelics are synthetic. That's not what we're talking about, but some, like mushrooms, are plant-based. And so it'll allow for, just like we did for cannabis, for a small amount of cultivation for personal use. Well, we want to make sure that people who have been convicted of these crimes in the past can get their history expunged so that it's not hanging over their heads. We initially had that as part of this bill, but we've had to split it off, and if this bill passes, we'll do that as a follow-up bill. We did this with cannabis as well. After we legalized it, we gave an easy pathway for people to expunge or remove or have erased their past convictions. So we're definitely committed to doing that here as well. Yeah, so the bill has passed through 3 Senate committees now, which is great. It is on the Senate floor, and we'll take it up for a vote on the Senate floor either this week or next week. We are cautiously optimistic that we have a path to pass it off of the Senate floor. I think I have colleagues who really understand the importance of this issue. We also are the two organizations that are sponsoring this legislation are groups that work with combat veterans to help them access psychedelics so that they can address their untreated mental health and addiction problems. Right now, these groups have to send these combat veterans to other countries, to Mexico or Peru or elsewhere to get this treatment, which is outrageous. These are people who have gone to war, have fought for our country, and have sacrificed their own bodies for our country, and we're forcing them to go to another country to get treatment. So we're working with a huge coalition of combat veterans to try to move the bill forward. And people really, when they listen to the veterans, they really learn and they get it. If the bill keeps progressing and passes and the governor signs it into law, it will go into effect January 1st of next year, 2022. This is the first time we've introduced this bill in the legislature. This is a new idea for the legislature. And so it requires a lot of work to educate and provide information. Oregon voters decriminalized all drug possession last November, not just psychedelics, all of them. It's now like a $100 ticket, which you can clear if you call a counseling hotline. So Oregon went even further than what we're proposing in decriminalizing all drug possession. Well, the other piece of this bill, in addition to decriminalizing, it sets up a working group to take some time and come back to the legislature and governor with recommendations about next steps. Those that could be legalization. It could be creating a new kind of certification for counselors who can help guide people through psychedelic experiences. It could be a lot of different things. And legalizing, right now we're just decriminalizing, just saying stop arresting people and prosecuting people for possessing these drugs. Legalizing is a much more complicated and challenging thing to set up an entire regulatory structure and potential retail sales. I don't know if we're going to go in that direction, but we're setting up this working group of experts to make recommendations to the legislature about what we might want to consider in the future.